As always, Bill, it's great to have you back with us here on Newsmax TV. I wanted to start with Trey Gowdy, who's leaving Congress. He says President Trump is frustrated that he picked Jeff Sessions to be his attorney general. Today on Twitter, the president agreed that he is frustrated and that he wished he'd picked somebody else to be the attorney general. When the president is openly criticizing, as he has in the past, Jeff Sessions in this way, and I also want to point out that you correctly predicted more or less the time frame of Rex Tillerson's departure. How much longer do you think Jeff Sessions can remain in office as the sitting attorney general?
I think it depends on the Inspector General's report from the Justice Department. If that shows that the FBI has totally booted both the Clinton and the Russia collusion investigations, then Donald Trump has an excuse to remove Sessions by saying, look, we need a leader of the Justice Department, of the FBI, to oversee a total revamping of the agency. Can't have somebody who's partially there, because that's what Sessions is, because he recused himself. That would give President Trump the excuse to get him out. He's out anyway, John. Sessions not going to last out the year. Either is the Director of National Security, Kirstjen Nielsen. She's going to go too. Now, all of this doesn't reflect very well on Donald Trump because he's just firing one after the other, and he selected them to begin with. But in Sessions' case, Trump needs a reason rather than the recusal, which has been going on forever.
Now, we also heard from Gowdy that there was no spying. He thought the use of these informants was proper. Gowdy has access to a lot of this classified information. He's seen these reports. Is Gowdy right in his assessment? And what do you think his motivation is for making these statements?
It's hard to say what his motivation is. I can't read his mind. I'd like to see exactly the appointment of the informer, spy, whatever you want to call it, how that came about. I mean, I'm not going to, I think Trey Gowdy is an honest man. He's a former prosecutor. He knows a lot of FBI people. I don't think he wants to besmirch the agency. But as a journalist, I'm a little bit skeptical of this. As many have pointed out, if the FBI was so concerned about Russian intrusion into the presidential election, why didn't they put an informant in the Clinton campaign? That's an unanswered question and a good one. So I'm going to be a little bit skeptical about getting on the Gowdy train on the spy deal. I want to see a little bit more information.
I think a lot of people want to see a little bit more information. All right, I got to ask you about Roseanne, of course, and on BillO'Reilly.com, you wrote this, quote, Ms. Barr has sent a signal to the nation's 13 million African Americans that white racism is indeed alive and well. Now, people have tried to compare what Roseanne tweeted to something perhaps Bill Maher said, and other comparisons were made to Keith Olbermann, who's recently been rehired by Disney, the parent company of both ABC and ESPN, perhaps Joy Reid over on MSNBC for some of the things that she wrote and claimed her account was hacked. Is there a double standard here, Bill, or is there no comparison at all to what Roseanne tweeted?
There's a double standard at ABC, no question about that. You don't hire a hater like Olbermann, and you don't allow the garbage that goes on The View if you're pure and looking for discourse that's respectful to everybody. So there's a double standard. There's no doubt about it. But as I said when the story broke, Roseanne is the most successful program on ABC. And if ABC had kept the show, they would be insulting millions of Americans, not just African Americans, but millions of Americans. They'd be going, you know, we're putting profit over civility. So, yes, there's a double standard. Iger cannot defend, Robert Iger, the head of Disney, which owns ABC, cannot defend The View. You can't defend The View. And you can't defend hiring a guy at ESPN who's probably the biggest hater in the country. So you can't defend it. But at the scale of Roseanne, the company had to move.
Now, there had been talks before of an advertiser boycott before this tweet was actually sent. Do you think there's a double standard with some of these advertisers too, Bill?
Well, having lived through an advertiser boycott that was totally ridiculous in my case, because there was no due process, it wasn't anything, it was driven by far-left zealots who basically extorted these companies, and the companies just gave in. So you can't look at that world with any kind of accountability. So if ABC had not fired Roseanne, surely no sponsor would have bought time on the program. Nobody would have, because they would have been held up to ridicule and worse. And that's the country we live in right now.
Those are the business decisions that have to be made. Last topic for you as we wrap up here. I want to talk about Iran. Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, said recently to the Washington Post there is, quote, no doubt the Trump administration will seek regime change in Iran. He's his lawyer, of course, not his Secretary of State. But also this has been echoed by National Security Advisor John Bolton. Is this a wise policy to pursue so publicly, quote, unquote, regime change in Iran?
Well, I don't believe it's being pursued publicly. I mean, that's just somebody's opinion. But certainly the CIA is doing everything it can to undermine the mullahs in Iran, and that's the way they should operate. Look, these people are killers. These people are mass murderers. They fund terrorism all over the place. If we didn't try to undermine them, the United States wouldn't be doing the right thing. So the faster the better for an overthrow of the government in Iran, and I hope the CIA and all of our other assets are working toward that goal.
All right. Bill, as always, great to talk to you. Have a pleasant day, sir.
Thanks for having me in.